Good morning. Yesterday we certainly covered a lot of topics. China and India, two relatively small countries. Building Abu Dhabi, Expo 2020, sovereign wealth funds, and of course Tony Blair, who I believe we all found extraordinarily interesting. And for those who participated in last night, some magic of disappearing. Today, I believe we will hear a lot about change and to understand the future and what we need to do and to succeed in this increasingly dynamic but difficult environment. The world in many ways is adjusting to some substantive changes, and traditional structures, hierarchies, and ways of doing things are being disrupted every day. Firstly, technology, as we all know, is radically reforming our world and the way we do business. Consider the sharing economies of business models of Uber and Airbnb. Every day, established business models are being disrupted and replaced with lower cost, greater access models created by small, entrepreneurial, non-bureaucratic companies. Secondly, global mobility continues to grow. People, trade, ideas, investments. 7 billion airline passengers will be traveling the world by 2034 on a per annum basis. That is currently the comparable is some 3.5 billion. In the last 30 years, world merchandise and commercial services trade have increased by 7% per annum on average. And emerging markets have driven this growth. Between 1980 and 2013, emerging economies raised their share in world exports from 34% to 47%. Their share in world imports from 29% to 42%. And more recently, energy and power. With advances in technology bringing renewable energy costs down substantively to grid parity. And just down the road, Dubai has proved that. With this, we are seeing a substitution, in many regards, of fossil fuels with capital-intensive but low labour-intensive renewable platforms. This will ensure the competitiveness of energy, green energy going forward. Yet, despite these changes, today we still have slow, some would say, anemic growth, global growth. The multinational business model is being challenged, not just by the market, but by policymakers and regulators. And there are far too many restrictions on broad-based wealth creation, which is important for the world. We believe, in our humble way at NBAD, there are three things that can be considered by policymakers. The first is that the countries and businesses must continue to focus on cities to enable a more decentralized, empowered urban model. Cities must become the power brokers of the future. They must control their own destiny for long-term economic growth. We believe if they do so, with 600 cities can generate some 60% of global GDP through to 2025. Much of this growth will come from cities in emerging economies. Just consider here Abu Dhabi and Dubai's rapid growth as a global tourism, logistics and trade hub, and how we are connected cities like Mumbai, Shanghai, New York and London. In summary, cities in emerging markets are taking charge of their own distinct economies. We must ensure they continue, and the developed world must follow. Second issue that we see is that policymakers and the financial industry as a whole must nurture the entrepreneurialism and our small to medium-sized businesses. SMEs in today's world more than ever must become the growth engine and innovation engines of our economy. And we need to give them access to capital, provide them with the tools to enhance their potential, and not burden them with excessive or unnecessary regulation. This latter point is extremely important. People who run small enterprises, they are the long-term wealth creators. They worry about the next 3 years, the next 5 years, the next 10 years, not the next 3 months. SMEs account for some 60% of GDP in the MENA region, and about 40% in Asia. The IFC, however, point out that they believe that the current SME funding gap in MENA alone has reached approximately $240 billion. It is indeed an opportunity that we at NBAD are taking forward. The third area that we believe is important is that governments must create smart policy and innovative regulation and remove the barriers to business development. Labour flexibility across the globe is now increasingly important. Long-term sustainable wealth and pension funds that tie into economic growth and stop the burden of the state on looking after people at an elderly age are now critical. Singapore is a great example of using their pension fund to help their own development. Policies that grow the pot, not just divide the existing pot, are now critical. Hotspot education and re-education, allowing individuals to change careers midway through their working life, will bring flexibility and creativity to the marketplace. The greatest opportunities we see are in the new centres of power, the young cities, and in the many of the fast-growing economies of what we all call the West-East Corridor. 2 billion of the world's young people live in 48 of these emerging markets. These emerging markets are expected to grow at 4.5% versus some 2% in the developed world over the next 5 years. And they are becoming increasingly connected markets, powered by trading and economic blocs, not necessarily political blocs. For example, ASEAN seeks to bring more global connectivity and prosperity as its main mandate to the region's 622 million citizens. And China's One Belt, One Policy Road, with its $40 billion of investment in some 60 countries, is another example. Fundamentally, success would be measured by how we, one, broaden and connect markets, reward those who take risks, and incentivize long-term investment. And most importantly, possibly, decentralize economic development that improves the living standards for everyone. We have a lot to do, and we are unlikely to answer all the questions, I'm sure, today at this forum, but I do hope all of us will see some progress of thought. Today we will hear from the former Greek Finance Minister, Yanis, on Greek exit, Brit exit, and the future of Europe. We'll hear from our old friend Alistair Newton on geopolitics of the world today. And there will be a conversation with Mohammed Ring, chair of the President Obama's Global Development Council. But for all of this, there is no better way than to start thinking about the issue at the top of all of our minds. I wonder what that is. Daniel Jürgen will help us on the great struggle over oil and energy with some help from others. Thank you very much. Have a great day.